Genesis HMAS Deconstruction Engine online.
When a professional football club enters financial freefall, damage accelerates rapidly. Debts mount, liquidity evaporates, and fielding a competitive team comes under immediate threat. Faced with insolvency, the standard corporate reflex is to initiate a comprehensive management shock. The board brings in outside consultants to modernize the entire operation at once. This means simultaneously mobilizing work streams for IT infrastructure, human resources restructuring, and governance reform. This is the all-fronts trap. In practice, mobilizing multiple departments simultaneously is highly inefficient. Teams overlap, hourly consulting rates multiply, and the overall fees can easily triple. The sheer volume of new initiatives causes total organizational paralysis. Instead of saving the club, standard multi-stream interventions actually accelerate the financial collapse of the very asset they intend to rescue. In a survival scenario, administrative idealism has no place. Utopian best practices and long-term organizational redesigns consume cash that the club simply does not have. The alternative is a strict triage model, often called Protocol Zero. This approach restricts the intervention entirely to forensic financial stabilization. Survival requires mapping the actual cash bleed in real time. It does not require a boilerplate statutory audit filled with generic notes on the accounts. This survival blueprint illustrates the rule perfectly. It explicitly marks governance and IT upgrades as management myths during a liquidity crisis. They demand massive upfront investment precisely when cash is scarcest. The mandate is absolute. If a restructuring effort is not ruthlessly hunting for hidden cash and unrecorded liabilities, it is a distraction from survival. This map outlines the starting point, a 14-day sprint. A small team spends 2 weeks on-site to conduct a rapid triage. The primary objective is rapid financial forensics. The team targets anomalies in the general ledger and trial balance to isolate where damage is occurring. They map operational bottlenecks and friction points, identifying the immediate vulnerabilities before the club bleeds any more cash. Every proposed solution then passes through the ultimate stress test, shown here in the recovery playbook as the sports first filter. It asks a binary question. Does this initiative free up cash for the players, or does it protect the sporting calendar? If a standard corporate initiative fails this specific test, it is immediately eliminated. There is no middle ground. In professional sports distress, sporting performance is the only metric that justifies an expenditure of time or liquidity. Executing this filter requires navigating a highly volatile environment. Distressed football clubs often operate with an amateur management culture, characterized by missing documentation and sudden executive turnover. Internal resentments flare quickly, and political shifts occur with alarming frequency. These factors make standard consulting execution completely impossible. To prevent the project from collapsing under internal politics, the intervention begins with an alignment workshop, effectively a courtship phase to establish rigid ground rules. The findings from the 14-day diagnostic report are presented to the club's leadership. This data forces them to debate trade-offs and agree to strict parameters for the turnaround. As the playbook outlines here, executing due diligence requires establishing mandatory risk management safeguards. This includes pre-approved stop work triggers linked to verifiable milestones and escrow mechanisms to ring-fence payment for the restructuring team. Without these aggressive financial safeguards in place, sudden project interruptions caused by internal political volatility will leave the club in a worse position than before the intervention started. Once the parameters are set, the project moves into targeted due diligence, executing the financial and fiscal first mandate, and replace the leadership team during a crisis. Mass firings at this stage destroy the turnaround team's ability to map off-book liabilities or understand the unwritten operational rules of the club. Preserving institutional memory, no matter how flawed or complicit it may be, is infinitely more valuable than immediate cultural reform when basic liquidity is on the line. With the staff retained to provide context, the forensic scope, or magnifying glass review, begins. This diagram shows the process. Non-statistical, risk-based sampling focused strictly on existential threats. The first critical vector is exposing artificial capital. Insolvent clubs routinely use cynical accounting entries to capitalize expenses. By recognizing non-existent assets or inflating revaluations, they manufacture fake profits to hide their losses. Forensic analysis reverse engineers these entries, stripping them from the balance sheet and returning them to where they belong, as direct expenses on the P&L. The second vector, shown here on the blueprint, is player transaction reconstruction. Every sale, purchase, and loan undergoes an end-to-end review. The team reconstructs agent fees and solidarity contributions to determine if the club's transfer activity is actually generating a profit or quietly bleeding cash. Simultaneously, the team maps the hidden liability pipeline, aggressively navigating disputed Social Security and labor regimes that are often omitted from official ledgers. True financial health can only be calculated by aggressively stripping away manufactured profits and exposing the hidden deaths waiting to detonate. This targeted protocol generates specific outputs listed under strategic impact. First, a credible liability picture, a line-by-line reality check of what the club owes, stripped of accounting tricks. Second, cash flow visibility, identifying exactly where money is lost daily. These hard numbers and clearly mapped risks form the mandatory foundation for a viable restructuring plan. Once stabilization is achieved, the board's initial desires for organizational redesign, modern governance, and IT transformations can be addressed. These are necessary and valid objectives, but they are strictly Phase 2 luxuries. They require a stable foundation to operate. Attempting Phase 2 actions during Phase 1 guarantees catastrophic failure, draining the last reserves of liquidity. In sports restructuring, survival demands ruthless financial pragmatism. If you do not secure the fiscal reality first, the club will not survive long enough to install the new software.